Another edition of NASCAR DFS Preview. I'm AustYn with the Sports Chief. So we're heading out to Bristol, Tennessee at Bristol Motor Speedway for the Food City Presents the Supermarket Heroes 500. It's a pretty long name for the race this week. So this is one of my favorite tracks personally. It is one of the more difficult tracks to strategize in DFS because of basically the high rates of speed. Is 500 laps, half-mile track, of course. It's reason being why it's so difficult is your race could end really quick. So if you have an issue, say you rub the wall a little bit, have to come down pit road, you have a loose wheel, anything like that, anything that would be considered minor at a larger track like Michigan or Fontana, something like that. If it happens at Bristol, you're coming down pit road and you have to come in the entrance. I believe it's exiting turn 2. So you have to come down and come all the way out and then exit out of the turn 1 entrance. So it's a pretty long ride. You're going really slow compared to the track speed. So, you could easily go 2 or 3 laps down with a mess up. So that's why it's so difficult. You have to have a pretty solid race from driver to pit crew, just the whole team. And being that it's 500 laps, you also pretty much in a tournament setting, you kind of have to have the guy that leads most of the laps. Of course, DraftKings scoring, you get a quarter of a point per lap led. First place, pays out, of course, the most. But it used to be a situation, the way the track was ran, in the old days, back when they run the bottom was king. Well, now they run kind of the high lane more so. I haven't heard any updates on whether they're using traction compound. I imagine they are. And I haven't heard word of when the competition caution is coming out, which I imagine they're having that as well. So I'm sorry about that if that I don't know that right offhand. I was looking for it and I couldn't find it. The strategy that we're using, of course, this season is different than any other season in history. So what are we going to look at? We're going to look at history. So past performances at this track. It's the finishes at Bristol are a little more spread out, so they're a little closer together. Being that if you mess up, you do have a really bad finish. There are some drivers that do have this place down pat pretty well. So we'll go off of that. Qualifying was picked off of random draw. Brad Keselowski got the pole again, so that's one thing to note. Let's just go ahead and let's see what DraftKings has to offer for us this week. Also, I'll just mention this: the salaries looked a little more basic this time compared to last time, where Jimmy was the most expensive driver. So it's more of the top-notch guys are here. So let's go ahead and check it out. So Kyle Busch, starting in 7th place, is at 12.5. Kevin Harvick starting in 8th at 12.2. Denny Hamlin starting in 10th at 11.6. Chase Elliott in 6th at 11.3. Joey Logano starting in 3rd at 10.7. And Jimmy Johnson is rounding out our 10K driver starting in 24th. So 7 times still got in the 10K bracket, even though his performance is not, like these guys. And even Kyle Busch's, if you look at that fantasy points per race, he's actually not performing quite as well as, like, say, Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick's been killing it. And if you scroll down here, there's some other guys that have been doing just as well as Kyle Busch. So that's interesting to see. Kyle Busch is the top-notch driver here at this track. He has won 8 races in his career. His average finish is 13.4. I want to say he had a string there where I think he won the last 4, and then Denny Hamlin broke it. Might have been the last 3, but he's won 8 total. So he went for a little stretch there where he wasn't winning with Joe Gibbs, but because he was winning with Hendrick in that 5 car. So I remember back when he won the COT race, very first one, I believe. So that was pretty good. He's starting in 7th, so it is a pretty good option. I'm not going to go that route. Harvick looked really good. Hamlin, he's won here. The guy that I'm going with is Chase Elliott. So Chase Elliott actually has the best average finish out of all active NASCAR Cup drivers, with a start at least. His average finish is 11.5, which is pretty good. He's never won here, but he's got 4 top 10s and 8 starts. He's led in all but 3 of his starts, which that's pretty cool too. 5 of the 8 he has led a lap. He also gets the first pit stall, so he gets to come down, and while he has a long ways to go to get to that one pit stall, like I said, have to enter across the other side of the track, he'll be able to rocket it out right away after that first pit stall. Under caution, that'll be even better for him, considering where he's at. So I really like Chase Elliott. He's starting in 6th. Chase is in a different mode right now, and I think that he's coming into his own as far as being one of the top guys in this sport. I don't know who he's really going to knock off at this point. I think the talent and the competition level is really high right now, especially in the Cup Series. So I really like Chase Elliott there in that spot. And he's not too expensive considering how he's been performing. 6th spot's a good spot. He's going to be on that high lane. So anyway, and I'm going to do things a little different here. So there was a driver that stuck in my head for this race, and I don't really know why. I actually saw the unveiling of his paint scheme this week, and it was the Built Ford Tough or Built Ford Proud car. I guess you know who I'm talking about. But he's starting in 23rd, and that is Clint Boyer. He is at 9-8. I'm going with Clint this week, and that's a really good starting spot. Clint's had some rough races here. He's actually not that bad. Well, he's had some rough races leading up to this event, I should say. He's not really that bad at Bristol. And one thing to note, I typically use Racing Reference for a lot of my stats. Since he's hopped in that 14 car, Stewart Haas Racing, his average finish at Bristol is 8th. That is really good. He seems to perform really well here in that car. I don't know what it is about that, but I really like Clint in 23rd. I think that him getting a top 15 is pretty likely. Hopefully they can put it together and maybe even come across with a top 5 or something. He's a driver that can win. Basically, any driver that has one is a guy that can win, I guess you can say. But anyway, I really like Clint this week. The 8th average finish at SHR is great. So, yeah, that's what I'm doing. It didn't really hurt the budget too much. We're at 7-2, so you got to pick some guys towards the bottom. Let's scroll to the bottom here. Bailey Curry, 26, Gase, 27th. All those spots are, wow, they're just too, you can't really consider those guys. Gray Galding has actually performed, he's normally like in the 30s, so that's not terrible for him. So Timmy Hill, 38th, McLeod, 39th, Yaley, 40th. If you're feeling lucky, you can go J.J. Yaley, but I don't like it. Brennan Poole is okay, but I'm going to cut him off there. So John Hunter Nemechek is 28.9. That's kind of close to what Kyle Busch is doing this year performance-wise. Fantasy points per race-wise. So I'm looking at this here. John Hunter Nemechek is starting 18th. Cole Custer, 22nd. Corey LaJoie, 32nd, which that's not a bad option. Chris Buescher, 19th. Ryan Preece, 33. Pretty good option. Dillon, 29th. And Ty Dillon. I'll cut it at AustYn there. So, thinking in my head, if I cut that off, and this is going to be my bargain pick, of course. John Hunter Nemechek has been driving pretty well here as of late. He's got the 2nd pit stall, actually, in this race, which is pretty good. As you can tell, he's been running, aside from the Toyota 500, which he was actually running decent in that one, 9th, 35th, 13th. That's pretty good. So, I like John Hunter Nemechek. And one thing to note about him, his Xfinity career at this track, he has an average finish of 7th. So, he seems to run pretty well here in another series, but I really like it. He's the cheapest guy there. The only other guy I would want to lean towards would be Ryan Preece, who has won an Xfinity race here. But I think Preece will be chalky. I don't think a lot of people are going to go John Hunter Nemechek, so that's where I'm going in that event. So let's just scroll up here. I said I cut it off at Austin Dillon, so let's just go ahead and analyze these guys. Matt Kenseth was one that I was really heavily debating on. I didn't go with him in the end. I don't think he's a bad option. He's starting in 14th. The 42 team has always been pretty, with Kyle Larson, they were always really good at Bristol. And I think Chad Johnston has a pretty good setup notebook for this track, I guess you could say. But Kenseth average finish here is 13.6, which is pretty good. He was very good at this track in the 17 car for Roush. I'm not going to go that route. I think you can, though, and I don't think you'll actually get burnt by it. But here is my low pick, and I'm going to go with Christopher Bell in 35th. Now, Bubba Wallace is intriguing at 36. Christopher Bell's my guy. The reason why I'm thinking this is because the 95 team last year, Matt DiBenedetto put on a show. He got Toyota, Joe Gibbs Racing equipment, and I really like him in this spot. He's won an Xfinity race here as well, and that's just a really good spot. And he's been showing pretty well. He's starting to come into his own. The more laps he gets, the better he'll be. And he's a top driver. I mean, he deserves to be in the Cup Series, and more so than Tim and Tyler Reddick are pretty much way ahead of Cole Custer, in my opinion, as far as being ready for the Cup Series and showing what they can do. So I like Christopher Bell. 8,050. So this is what we're stacked with here. So, leading up to one of the toughest decisions I had to make. I've got 8,050. I could go like a Matt Kenseth and pick Tyler Reddick. That wouldn't be a bad option. Do I think Kenseth can win? Probably not. Tyler Reddick? Maybe. Probably not, though. One guy that I think can win the race is Ryan Blainey. Ryan has actually led over 100 laps here a couple times. I just really like his spot right now in that fourth position, Team Penske. I think he's going to hang up front. He looked really good in the Charlotte weekend with third and fourth. And the thing about Ryan Blaney is he tends to, when he gets in a roll, he's on a roll for a while. And Eric Almirola's in second, Logano's third. So 1, 3, and 4 are your Penske engine guys, which is crazy. Top 4 are all Fords, and then Truex. One thing to note about Martin Truex Jr., I didn't realize he was this bad at Bristol. 28 starts. He's got 3 top 10s. That is crazy. And I think he's got 2 top 5s. So 2 of the top 5s came with Michael Waltrip Racing. So even when he was killing it with Fern Trudeau, he didn't get top 5s. I think he might have got a top 10, but that's wild. That's crazy. So, yeah, one thing to note about him. So, Ryan Blaney was actually very difficult for me to pick, but I'm going to go break it down here, and this is where it's really tough for me. So, Ricky Stenhouse is actually pretty good here at Bristol. His last 2 or 3 starts, he's kind of had mishaps, and that kind of ruined his average finish numbers. But I was down to Matt DiBenedetto or Eric Jones. You could go Bubba Wallace. I just don't like him as much in this event. The guy that I'm really going after is Eric Jones at 7,000. So DiBenedetto put on a show in the 95 car last year. I like Eric Jones at Bristol. I actually watched him. This has been a while back, but he was in the 77 car with Furniture Row back when they had 2 teams when he got brought up to the Cup Series. Started second or third, and he led most of the race and should have won it, but he didn't. And I think Eric Jones is just a really good Bristol driver, in my opinion. So in that 15th spot, I really like him getting a top 10, and I prefer his car compared to DiBenedetto in terms of team. So that's what I'm going with. I got $500 left over, so pretty good. So let's go ahead and fix it here. So Chase Elliott at 11.3, Clint Boyer at 9.8, Ryan Blaney at 8.6, Christopher Bell at 7.3, Eric Jones at 7,000. Rounding out my lineup, and man, I tell you, there's Ryan Preece sitting there. I'm not going to go with it, though. We're going to go with John Hunter Nemechek. So there you have it. One thing to note, and I don't know if I've mentioned this in past videos, but John Hunter Nemechek with Front Row Motorsports, Corey LaJoie is talking about engine programs, and it was pretty interesting to hear that story about how Front Row Motorsports actually has like a Tier A engine program. Now, how true that was coming out of Corey, we'll see. But that kind of explains why he's performing so well. compared to the past several years, front row has never been that much of a contender, like a top 20 driver. And David Reagan was an okay driver. Maybe it was driver. Maybe John Hunter is just a little better than those guys. I'm not sure, but again, DraftKings in the Cup Series, that's why it's so fun to play. It looked like a pretty good slate. If you like what you see here, like, comment, or subscribe to, do all of the above. How about that? So, if you want to hear some more great content, I try to put out a video for every single Cup Series event. Pretty excited about all this racing that we got going on. So, follow us on Twitter at TheSportsChief and on Instagram as well. And best of luck to you in the Bristol weekend, and have fun.